Well, as you heard, I'm Nkrumah. This is my wife, Lindsey, and we run a bunch of businesses together. The most important is CRWN Magazine. It's a media platform dedicated to black women, specifically black women who have, specifically targeted at black women who have started on their natural hair journey. But it's really a lifestyle publication that aims to address all facets of what it means to be black and woman. In this time. We recently relocated here from New York. The magazine was founded in New York, and we're very happy to be in Dallas. It reminds me a lot of home. I'm from Southern California.
Yeah, I'm from Northern California, Sacramento to be exact. But we met way back when in Southern California. And like you said, we launched the magazine in New York and are very, very excited to be here and to be able to take part in communities like this here in Dallas. We had a hunch that there were more people that thought like us here. And people, you know, just people when we were making the move are like, why Dallas? And it's like, you know, I think we all know why Dallas. That us in this room understand why. And yeah, we're just very, very excited to be here and to share our story, some of our experiences with the hopes that it can help you guys. And we really just want it to be a conversation. You know, we're all here doing our various things. Again, I know we were talking a little bit. We all have our different struggles and are in different parts of the process. So we would really love to kind of open up and just hear from you guys. Like, what are you guys working on? Like, even shout out at us. What's going on? What, you know, I know you were a photographer and videographer. What, I know you know, are taking a day today. But share with us. You can shout it out or raise your hand, however you want to do it.
Actually, it'd be good. Let's go around the room. I want to know who I'm talking to and what you're working on.
Perfect.
Yes.
I'm Paola, and I'm an intern here. So I guess I've been working on trying to really find and hone my style as a photographer.
Dope.
But yeah, no, I like to focus on most important fashion. It's really interesting.
Okay.
Very
Good to
nice.
see you. Very good to see you. Yes.
The lovely Augustina.
I'm Augustina. Thank you guys for coming to our next talk today. I'm the Director of Operations for that takes two events here. And I'm also the Executive Director of an Artist on Common organization. So trying to figure out how collaboration can strengthen the classical arts in Dallas.
Beautiful.
Chris Schultz, I'm the Attractive Team, the office here at Waxbase. We help nonprofits with development work and the fundraising efforts. So basically anything that a development director or executive director of a nonprofit would try to help with capacity and make sure they're on the right track.
Very good to see you.
I'm Andrew Patton. I'm a member here at Waxbase, and I help companies improve by helping them work on high leverage habits, basically kind of just small actions that you repeat over time to help the company improve and get to where you want it to go.
Nice.
Steve Lilly with Witchbox Media. We office under Waxbase. I'm a programmer and developer, but we build essentially a brand leveraging private network for social private network corporations.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm Miranda, and I am a Dallas Council supervisor, so I work with kids who are in the foster care system, and I am taking a mental health test.
Cheers
Yes.
to this.
Hello, my name is Deborah Powell, and I own White Gown Workroom, which is a bridal salon. And we specialize in off-the-rack dresses as well as retail and redesigning and
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
So I've been riding the bridal wave for 17 years.
Wow.
And
Good for you.
I'm happy now to be evolving with the times. They change
Fast.
very fast, and so I'm hanging in there.
Good.
Good to see you.
Very good to see you.
I'm Bettina. I work with Steve at Witchbox, and we're actually in the process to launch one of my business bucket list items that I've had on there since 1992.
Oh,
We're
wow.
launching an
Wow.
online community publication, so what that means is anybody can actually contribute into that digital magazine.
Nice.
Because I believe that it's actually a democratic process and that every voice has to be heard and that you can't have enough diversity when you have editorial teams. And it's called Perfectly Good News.
I love
and
that.
Love it.
focuses entirely on good people doing good things.
Beautiful.
And the motto is in a world where you can be anything, be kind. And we hope to create a counterbalance to all the
Bad news.
craziness that we're exposed to every day. And I realized that my anxiety levels were increasing drastically and that I wasn't the only one. And while we can't stick our heads in the sand, I think it's also important to remember that there may be, aside from those 10 stories that we hear every day, there may be 9,990,900 other things that happen where everyday people do the right thing or do a good thing or have to share something that is joyous or happy or inspiring or uplifting. And I think we need that in our life on a daily basis.
Beautiful.
Agree. Wonderful.
My name is Stephanie, and I own a hair extension company, which also designs sustainable hair tools for textured hair. And I also, well, here's the elephant in the room. I'm based in China, so I'm actually here back home because of the outbreak. But I've been here for 6 weeks, so.
Disclaimer.
And so I also consult with a lot of businesses who do want to do business in China, and I host market tours and things of that
Very,
nature.
very cool.
Good to
Very
see you.
important.
So I'm Tiffany. I'm a cybersecurity, also the founder of Black IT Cybersecurity Professionals. We run a meetup out of Capital Factory the first Saturday of every month. So there's one tomorrow. Davey Martin's going to be there. He's the co-founder of Geek Leaks. There's an esports thing. It's crazy nuts, taking over the world. So have you heard of Betfully? It's Fetfull. Betfully. It's a startup by Gigi. She's a black lady. They focus on wedding planning, and basically everyone can afford a wedding planning and different aspects of it. So you're able to like pick and choose like the bespoke, like fit your services, your dress services, and stuff. Most definitely find Gigi.
Connections being made. Love it.
Trying to get more black people, more women in it. My group really is there to help companies sort of close their racial gap when it comes to technology. It's
Love it.
really out there. I was at a conference 2 weeks ago. 98% white dudes, 0.5% women. It was crazy. Yeah. I'm Lisbeth. I am a videographer and photographer. I started my own company about a year and a half ago called Lake Harris Media, and I love to help small businesses, nonprofits, individuals create content for their website, social media that shares their story and shares who they are. And lately I've been working on projects that highlight farmers in Virginia who practice regenerative agriculture, which has been super fun and gives me a lot of hope for the future of agriculture, but it also makes me now like really conscious about what food I eat and where it's from. So it's been a fun process.
Nice.
Hi everyone, sorry. I'm Corey. I currently work in corporate America. I've been there for 12 years now. I just recently started my own lifestyle brand where we focus on what it means to be a minority in this pure world today. That's just about it. That's all I would like to share today.
I'm Flossie. I'm also a photographer. I currently freelance with GoDaddy's social media branch for small businesses building their online reputation and raising money. an entrepreneur. My last project was on loneliness. So, and just striking that chord of like conversation about who are we uniquely, what drives us, and where our hats can easily change with our jobs and life and marriage and all of that. Where if we are deep rooted in a particular faith or a cause, then we don't get so easily shaken. So that's kind of where I'm at creatively.
Very nice.
Deborah, over here, I'm a life coach and I'm leading a coaching cohort right now on creative projects for the common good. Just trying to encourage people to channel their creativity in some kind of short-term project. And I'm also a great participant, so I'm personally working on writing anti-racist children's books and then trying to form a play group for my child.
Yeah.
Where we can have conversations about raising and
Very important.
So, people, like that's the point. One of the biggest things that we bring with us is the people that we encounter along the way. And we found that creating a community and just being aware of and connecting with people based on what is valuable to them has rewarded us very handsomely. And that's why we wanted to go through this exercise. Just, you know, like networking can be difficult for some people. You spoke about having anxiety. I'm extremely anxious all the time and very shy, even though you might not imagine it. But I will say for sure, one of the things that's impacted our business the most is the people that we thought to keep along the way.
And the people that heard what we were doing and kind of came out the woodwork, it seemed, in a lot of instances, and were just like, hey, I know, you know, exactly what you guys were just doing. I know such and such, you guys should have a conversation. I, you know, can write, I can do X, Y, Z. And in the beginning, that's kind of all you have, because if you don't have a ton of money, we're a bootstrap business. It's connecting those dots and leveraging that energy, and you know, that was so paramount, especially in the beginning, was just feeling supported and allowing yourself to feel supported and be supported is a big thing.
It's important that we start with trust, and you know, thinking about anxiety, thinking about imposter syndrome, thinking about what it means to be qualified to do whatever you're endeavoring to do, thinking about do you, never mind trusting the process, do you trust yourself? And I feel like this is a very important place for us to start. I think that one thing that we can all relate to is having a conversation with someone and very good ideas are flying across the room and then nothing happens. And a lot of times that's because we don't trust our own intuition for our own genius or brilliance. Somehow, even if it's a good idea to us, there's something that gets in there that makes it so that you don't take it and carry it any place, that you don't even get started. And we wouldn't be sitting here in front of you right now if it weren't for that intuitive level of trust. Our business and our family, but first our business started with just a conversation between friends.
Yeah. And trust of self and trust of each other. We had been friends and colleagues for I think like 8 years or something like that. And he was still on the West Coast. I had moved to the East Coast. I was in New York. And we were just having a chat on my rooftop in Brooklyn, like hanging out, catching up. It had been a while. And it, like he said, it just, this concept came out of almost, it felt like out of thin air. And this was the end of 2014 now. And it was just it could have just been a thing that was said and we moved on, but there was something that really struck a chord about creating something that immortalized what we were seeing in the digital space that was happening around conversations around Black women and their hair, and people with millions of followers and YouTube subscribers and tons of views doing something, sitting in front of their screen, twisting their hair out. All of these things that really reflected back what happened in my own life, how my own friends were transitioning and, starting to wear their hair natural, how my mom had just big chopped. Like, it was like, there's something here. And he threw out the idea of making a print magazine, and I was like, sounds great. Let's make a print magazine in the middle of the digital boom. But he kind of talked me into it a little bit. And we had history, and so I knew what his work looked like on the creative side. I had run a digital platform, not so successfully for some years prior, but all of that kind of fueled me into, really it made me not want to do something like this. But I think as we continued, as we did actually get started, I realized how much was there, like you can't discredit your experiences because it didn't go exactly right the first time. It was experience, and it all comes into how I'm able to run this business today, how we're able to run this business. And so it was really just like that spark, and we literally started drawing up plans that night. Like we mapped out, I think, 14 different business models potentially that we would try to tackle, and how could we really bring this thing to life. And it started out as like a weekly call, because we were on opposite coasts, and we just got on the phone every week and had these little check-ins, thank you so much. Had these little weekly check-ins and just kept pushing the ball forward and pushing it forward. But I think the biggest part was us trusting ourselves and our experiences, but then trusting each other and then showing up.
Yep. And I'll say that that nothing will trump your instincts for whatever it is that you're doing. And a lot of times when you're doing something for the first time or you're in uncharted territory, you will have a lot of doubt and you will have a lot of fear. And that fear will keep you from pushing forward. But you have to place or at least we've found that when we place a higher value on our own intuition and our instincts, that is a different kind of IQ that has in many ways become secret sauce for us. Like we've used it to our advantage. All the things that we didn't know in endeavoring to do this business, some of those things, doing things wrong, but just trusting the way that we wanted to do them, turned out to save us in the end. It's just instincts for a different way to go about things. We dealt with a lot in the beginning, and we dealt a lot with the questions about, is this how it's supposed to go? Am I doing it right? And the answer is really, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you get started and you keep moving.
Yeah. And for us, it was really staying in tune with who is this woman that we're speaking to? Yeah. How do we deliver her the most value possible? Because the idea with this magazine is that we're not going to build this magazine that's full of ads and try to like pawn it off on people for free and give tote bags away. We're going to build a relationship with our customer, and we've been able to build a premium product that our customer purchases. It's not a newsstand $3 magazine. Sometimes people are like, it's what? But then they pick it up and they see it and they read it and they're like, oh, I see. This is like a coffee table book. This is something I want to share with my sisters. I want to share with my cousins. I want to pass down even. And so staying in tune with the conversations that were important. We did a lot of like empathy mapping and really getting into the psyche of who our customer is. And again, weekly calls, who is this woman, like moving things forward. And then we decided to test out an MVP at a music festival in New York called Afropunk. So we went out and we made a very small version, not this 130 whatever page version, but a folded little version that had a glimpse and tidbits of content that we thought we wanted to share. It had our mission statement kind of in it. It had different like hair inspiration and different tidbits of content that would go into the full magazine. And we went out, two of us, I think my boyfriend at the time, and like some random family members that were around, and just went out and were like, hey, we're Crown Magazine, you know, had conversations. And our anxious selves were like, I don't want to do this. It sounds terrible. This is actually your idea.
I mean, but this is a part of you know, when you have a relationship with your customer or your reader, that is a relationship that requires trust as well. And you know, what Lindsey was explaining with us putting out our MVP, like we didn't have the time or didn't have the capital to just start with the finished idea.
Right.
So we came up with some semblance of the idea, and
Tested it.
in a way to build trust with the audience that we wanted to serve, and to build that confirmation along the way. It's kind of like you ever see someone walk across like a plank bridge, and you test the step right in front of you, and a lot in this journey we have sort of, you know, probed in the world around us, like sometimes blindly and just trying to figure it out, and testing the next step to give us the confidence to step boldly.
Right, right. And by doing that, we got so many confirmations of, you know, oh my gosh, I want to, how do I get this? What do I do? And we were giving away, is this free? Or like I'm standing there and people are coming up to me in front of like other booths, like, what is this? Can I have this? How do I advertise? So it was like, okay, we have a confirmation this could be a business. And like, I think on the way to the festival, he made a little website where people could actually buy the magazine. So we handed out the zines, and then we had people follow us on Instagram, which really like made us catapult at the time. This was, what, 5 years ago now?
Yeah.
And
there was a
different
lot of juice
algorithm.
left in that algorithm.
And so we started off our Instagram following, and then we got our first sale, I think the same day or the next day. So it was like, okay, we're an actual, very fledgling business, but we are now a business. And I think a month later, we got our first press. We were in Essence, a print Essence magazine a couple of months later. And then Huffington Post picked us up, and it just kind of kept snowballing. And we've kind of been running ever since. Kind of, you know, made us have to continue. If there was ever a doubt, it was like, okay, well, we have customers, so we got to make this thing now. We pre-ordered the magazine.
Something else that has been important and valuable to our journey is not only bringing the people from our path along with us, but it's also been about bringing all the experiences and the skill sets along with us. We found that in some ways coincidence, but in many ways, in many respects, not coincidence at all, that all of our previous career experience had prepared us perfectly to build this brand and to operate this business. And you know, I look back and I'm very thankful that I did a lot of the grunt work as a creative person in jobs that I really didn't love, because it's the sum total of all those things that prepared me to do my great work, to do the work that was purposeful and was meaningful to me. An example of that is I started my career in tech, and I'm a product person, so I've always been very interested, or more interested in working on things that move the needle, things that the end customer or user will see, and like that's where all the action is. That's where the fun is. That's where I want to lend my gifts. And I remember being very young in my career and constantly having to work on pitch decks for business people who were doing smart things like raising venture capital and this, that, and the third, but I hated it. And fast forward many years later in operating this business, one of the things that's the most important is being able to convey ideas and concepts before you execute them to whomever your co-conspirators are, your partners are. And so I found myself making a lot of pitch decks. And I laughed to myself and I just thought like, wow, this is something that I really hated, but something that drives so much value for this thing that I love. So it is not only the people that you bring along with you, but it's all those little experiences that add up to something.
Right. I have a lot of similar sentiments. Had a lot of different experiences working in the corporate space, we both worked in the music industry in various ways back in LA. Worked in startups, dabbled in had side hustles for a long time and trying to figure it all out. But it's funny, one of the things, graduated into the Great Recession, so that was fun. And then ended up with a finance job. And I was like a business marketing major, so I definitely did not intend to go into finance. But I worked in, processing payments for a major record label, and I saw how slow that can be, how slow the process is. I saw how invoices get stopped going through because of very minor, strange things like a number here or an item there. And at the time, I hated this job. Like, I was like fighting to get out of this job and figure out what the next step was. And I want to be creative. This is whack. Like, I did not enjoy it at the time. I felt like my mind could be used to do other things, but it's one of the most important skills. In entrepreneurship, one of the most important skills is getting paid, getting the money that you're owed, especially when you're a small business. And you don't necessarily have the connections in the buildings and all the things, but like knowing the addresses have to match on these documents and this has to go right there, so that you're dealing with a lot of times in a big corporation trying to get paid, you're dealing with someone who is just trying to get an email out of their inbox. So they're like, oh, you have to change this, not knowing I got to pay my rent tomorrow. Like, I don't have time to go back and forth and keep doing this. So something that is very tedious and annoying and boring ended up being something that has kept our cash flow, as solid as it could be, especially in the beginning. But it's those things that I think you don't necessarily appreciate when you're going through it, because it's like, I want to be doing something else. But pick up all of those things, and I think also know when you're starting, those are the things that, if you do feel that imposter syndrome, just know that there's all these things that you don't even know you have with you. They'll reveal themselves along the way. So a lot of times it's like, take that step, not knowing, you have to take that leap of faith, and then all of that other, if you've done the work, all those other things will fill themselves in. You don't have to feel like you know everything, have everything, can verbalize everything, because you don't even know what you need yet. I couldn't have known that was going to be such an important skill, but it has saved us.
So it's about all of that little incremental work and development that you do along the way that really matters, and that the way we think about that is in terms of craft, in terms of like being committed to whatever your discipline is, or being committed even to whatever your path is, because maybe your path requires a bunch of different disciplines, but it's the diligence and the commitment, and it's the not giving up that allows you to build craft over time. And I think that's something that's very important. I think a lot of people get very impatient, especially in this social media era where we can see other people's success. And you see some people have success very fast, maybe much faster than you, and that can make you feel some type of way. But the fact of the matter is that when you spend the time to develop craft, you will get yours. You can have it any way that you want it because you've put the time in. And there is, you know, she makes fun of me because like, this is when I'm on my old man shit and I sound like my grandfather, but it's like, there's no substitution for putting the time in. Sometimes you get lucky and it doesn't take a long time, but there's really no substitution for the devotion and commitment to craft.
Yeah. Agreed.
How are we doing on time?
Doing pretty good, I'd say. Yeah, we've got time.
Okay.
Keep going.
So the next thing that we think about when we are looking at like our journey and our process and this experience in entrepreneurship, really like something that's been very valuable to us is being flexible and being responsive. You know, they say that the marketplace is an environment. It's a live environment. Your customers are moving around. Your competition is moving around. You know, people's attention is elusive. And because it's a live environment, you can't be prepared for it. You had to just get in it and respond to it. There's been so many changes, so many ups and downs in our journey in building this business. And the thing that has kept us is our ability to read what's in front of us and to move our feet accordingly, like a boxer, to reposition when necessary or to get firmer in a stance if necessary, but really being flexible enough to know that this master plan that maybe we've come up with is not gonna work now. Or can't work until, and being able to adjust and adapt and dealing with all the emotions involved with that, because it's not the easiest thing to do, especially when you have in mind how a thing should go. So I would say that like our adaptability, our flexibility, our ability to shuffle our feet has helped us a great deal along the way. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. Hello. Yeah, I mean, I think throughout the entire process, from that first day going out to the festival and handing things out to people, it was taking those inputs and trying to understand what we need to do to better serve our customer. And I think whenever we've gotten off track, it's been taking our eye off the ball of who are we serving first. You know, you go after big brand partnerships and advertisers and, you know, things fall through and you were like, oh my gosh, we're gonna die. Like, it's not gonna happen. I don't know. Should we give up? I think we had like one of those moments where it was like a real conversation, like, are we gonna keep going on this? This was years and years ago. But I think for us, it's always been, okay, we gotta pull it back. One, how do we best serve our customer and how do we sell more of these things? Because that's gonna keep the lights on. And you know, that leads into the revenue conversation. Are you doing revenue generating activities every day? And how do you do that and add the most value to your customer? That's really what it is at the end of the day. If everything gets murky and there's all of these different things and you don't know what to do first, it's always come back to that moment. And every time we've done that, we've been rewarded
For sure.
very, very well. When we've gone and, you know, you have to be pushing, you have to be looking at the top line, you know, situation and revenue and trying to, like, again, when we first sat down, there were like 14 revenue streams that we came up with. Many of those involved other brands and other things, and you cannot control all of those things. So a lot of it is going back to what you can control. I can control, you know, sending certain emails, or I can control even running ads on Facebook, or, you know, just different things that we'll get this thing in front of more people. And sometimes it's really just like, sometimes when we felt bad in the past, it's like you go out and hand a magazine to someone and see their eyes light up and they're like, what is this? Oh my gosh. And I think for us, the whole thing was, from the beginning, we wanted Black women to see themselves, to really see themselves in a way that we hadn't seen ourselves growing up. And, you know, we just thought it was so strange that you could open a magazine and flip through and never see our natural hair, never see a strand poking through, you know? We very much feel like we're no hair police. We want everyone to do what they do, but like, why does our hair have to be hidden? And so I think sometimes when you keep going, you forget that is profound still, you know, it's still that way, even though there's more Black women on covers than ever before, which I think last fall, it was like the most Black women on covers for like the September big fashion issue. I think this was 2018 maybe, 2019, 2018. So things are changing, but still it's going back to why we started. And when you see that look on your customer's face, it's that like, okay, you know, re-triggering why we started this thing and how we position that value. And sometimes you have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, things have changed. There are more people, Black women on covers, so how do we message this in a way that's new and fresh and all of those things. So evolving constantly and making sure that we're not just, you know, telling a story from 5 years ago.
Yep.
We have our customer, just like the marketplace, is ever changing and evolving herself. And, you know, when we started, representation was enough, like just seeing ourselves. But no, it can't just be seeing. We have to hear from ourselves. We have to go deeper, you know, having a depth of representation, because, you know, we existed, we came out, we solved for a problem, and the marketplace evolved and is like, oh, Black women, yeah, let's sell them things. So let's put our faces on everything. And so now how do you break through that clutter and communicate how we're different? And so that's a constant evolution and a constant thing that we have to address.
And I think that there's personal ramifications too. Like when you're doing something that's scary and that's big, it will grow you. It will require that maybe you are a different person than when you started, hopefully a better person. Sometimes people get engaged in projects and businesses and it makes them horrible. They should quit and they should find something else to do. But it's difficult, and that's why I think it's important. Like I couldn't imagine doing this without a partner, because a part of what drives that evolution, especially that personal evolution, is having people around you that can hold up a mirror to you, or who can encourage you when they see you, like, you know, slowly starting to make a turn. But it's, I would say, the willingness to go into the process knowing that you're gonna be different. Like your interests are gonna change. Like right now I'm going through this point in my development where I've always really just enjoyed design. I don't want to talk to people. I don't really want to operate a business. I just want to be creative. And over these last 5 years, I have grown into a business person. And that's meant spending less time doing the things that I used to love the most, and spending more time doing the things that I never thought that I would really dig. And it's just sort of having the space to do that, and also having partnership and having people around you that will encourage you and help you get through imposter syndrome, and to help you celebrate your wins and to help pick you up when sometimes you lose.
Yeah. And speaking of the imposter syndrome thing, I think that's a thing that is very common, especially among women. especially when you're first starting. And I just remember, like, when we first started, we were just so excited for every opportunity. Oh, you want me to speak here? You want me to do this? You want me to, yay, this is so exciting. Like, everything was, you know, getting interns and, like, just happy to have help. And now it's like, no interns. No, thank you. It's not help. It costs time, you know. And I think it's just interesting, that evolution of, you know, in the beginning, you're just so thankful that you have a thing and that anyone cares. And then it's that evolution of, okay, I put in work, I put in energy, there's opportunity cost to this. There's every moment of time has to be invested in a wise way. And it's, part of it is just you gain that confidence through doing. You know, you're doing and you're going and you see your revenue increase every year. You see, you know, maybe social media metrics that, you know, you might not have thought you were an expert, but certain things in your business are growing and you're like, okay, we know what we're doing. You know, in the beginning you're like, again, am I doing this right? Who knows? You know, but then you're like, I've just bootstrapped a business for 5 years, and that is real. Like, that is not, it wasn't a side hustle. It was 5 years of making a living from this thing that just came out of our minds. And I think you can't underestimate that, what that does for you. And, you know, a lot of my job is pitching and reaching out to potential advertisers and partners. There's so much rejection. And in the beginning, you're just like, okay, I don't know about this. This hurts. You know, you take it personally. And then now it's like, whatever. I gotta, you know, we won't die without you. We're fine, you know? And so your attitude changes, things adapt. And I think that evolution is really beautiful.
One of the things I'll say that it's been cool to see Lindsey develop as a creative person. She is a very creative person, but
Never thought I would.
Never considered herself as a creative person, like working in finance and truly being like a business person and a strategy person. But so much there's so much inventiveness, ingenuity, and creativity required in building a business. It's about solving problems. It's about addressing problems in an ever-changing environment, and that requires a different kind of thinking, and that thinking is truly creativity. Even like in the way that we will structure partnerships and engage with other companies, it's maybe not a way that they normally do business or not how you're supposed to do business, but it works and it's new and it's different, and it's having a willingness to like be open to that.
And the confidence to just be like this.
Yeah.
And nobody knows, really nobody knows anything. They're just doing it because they have a spreadsheet that the company gave them, and you know, if you present something different, they might do it differently. So there's that.
Yeah, there are no rules.
Yeah.
Really, there are no rules. You know, there's something that, a saying that we developed with our team along the way is nobody is smarter than us. And that doesn't mean that like we're smarter than everybody else, but that just means that like we're just as smart as everyone else. And in fact, in this specific thing that we're doing, nobody is smarter than us. So, you know, if this is not the right way, this is the way that we thought of to do it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, but it's about having that confidence. And that's, when you have that for yourself, it's easier to give that to your team, which is something over the last couple years that has also been of great benefit to us. By starting this business and bootstrapping it, we didn't go out and raise a bunch of capital, meant that we had to touch every part of the business, which in the beginning, that is, which made it easier for us to hire and easier for us to train and easier for us to manage, because we understood every aspect of the work that had to be done in a very intimate way, and in a way where we could develop systems and processes that fit us, that fit our mission, and that fit the product that we develop.
In the way we like to work.
That part.
Yeah.
I can't say enough how valuable it is to prioritize your culture, your company's culture over everybody else's culture, especially when you do business with other companies in a close way, or you have partnerships. A lot of times you'll find that you're working with people who have a toxic work culture, and it's strange.
And they try to enforce it. It's like, no, let's not.
And we purposely do things in a different way because it feels icky to do it that way. Right. We would rather do it in a more human, more familial, more respectful, more dignified way, and less of a competitive, ego-driven way. And it took us a long time to be able to recognize when there was a bad cultural fit in working with other organizations. And it also took us some time to be, when you're a new business, you're opportunity driven because you're still trying to work it out. But as you develop and as you truly become sustainable and profitable, you're able to pick and choose the opportunities that are best for you. And some opportunities may be like really good financially for the business, but maybe not good for the brand. Or might maybe be very good financially, but it will cost us in just the emotional and cognitive load of working on terms that are against our culture. So.
Does anyone have questions?
To that, how do you step out of a relationship like that that's toxic? How do you deliver the news, or how do you?
I'll let you take that one.
I mean, honestly, it depends on how toxic. So there's two things I'll say to that. The first decision is, do you care about the bridge or not? And if you don't care about the bridge, sometimes it's cool. It feels good to tell people to go fuck themselves. But if you do care about the bridge, you say, it's maybe it's a timing thing. This is not the right time, or just being honest and saying, this doesn't feel like the right fit for us, and here's why. And then, maybe giving the person on the other side of the table the opportunity to acquiesce and adjust, like, oh, those things aren't even important to me. Your way is fine, or we can make these adjustments. But I would say, for us, one of the things that we have developed more recently is just a change in how we enter into partnerships and relationships. And so now there's like a lot more dating. And like it's a progressive engagement.
Yes, very much so.
Rather than taking a whole bunch of business from you, let's just do a little business. Let's do a small project and see how that goes. And if we dig it, let's do some more. But if we don't dig it, it's like, all right, cool. It wasn't a marriage that we have to unravel. It was just a bad date.
Right. Right. That's huge. Yes.
I have two questions. So, where did you get the ethos for this idea, this magazine? Like, where did it come from? And then the second question is, why did it ground?
It was his idea. He tried to pretend like it was mine, but it was his.
I mean, really, it's just, just our experiences. I was raised by a single mother, and so I was privy to my mom's like beauty rituals. Like I was privy to like the weekly things she did to her hair, and seeing her put on makeup in the car on the way to taking me to school as a little kid. And like,
didn't your uncle own a beauty supply?
Yeah, as a child, my very first job ever, I think I was like maybe 9 years old, I worked in my uncle's beauty supply. And so culturally, I've always understood how important hair in particular is for Black women, and it just is like a fact of life. And I think that the catalyst for starting Crown was seeing it play out, seeing that cultural, that niche cultural experience play out in a quantifiable way on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Once we saw that there was like, every week I could discover a new woman who had hundreds of thousands of subscribers on YouTube that just watched her sit in her bathroom and do things to her hair. And as strange as that sounds, it's like, that's a cultural phenomenon.
Right.
And
it's something very sacred that would be between you and your auntie or mom or sister, like in your home, that is now being broadcast across the world. And it was just like, this is something. This is definitely something. And it was just a conversation. And we met working on a blog, 2007 or something like that? That he had started, and I was like fresh out of college and helped edit and whatever. And so we both had backgrounds in the digital space and in all kinds of things. And so the idea of a magazine was not far off. The print part was far off, but you had a background in print design. And because I had worked with him before, and I could already see it when he said it. It was like, oh, this is gonna be fly. Like, if somebody else had brought this to me, I'd be like, yeah, good luck, have fun with that. But because I really respected his work, like, he hates when I say this, but he used to design club flyers back in the day. And it was like, these flyers, you know, there's always these janky flyers that people hand out, and they still look hideous. And the ones that he would create, they'd be like this woman with like this flowing dress and like grain on it, and it would be beautiful. And I just remember, like, I loved his design style. And so when we were having that conversation, I could just see it, and I could see that it was missing. And I'd been looking for that thing my whole life, sitting in the beauty shop, looking through magazines. It's like, I can't get hair inspiration from this. Like, everybody has a weave, and that's cool, but like, I don't want to wear a weave. You know, my mom never wore weaves, and so it was just like, where do we find, you know, she relaxed her hair for a long time, and then she chopped all her hair off. And so I'm watching her go through her progression and her, you know, health, like cutting out sugar from her diet. And she did this whole like lifestyle change, and realizing, okay, it's a hair thing, but it relates to health, it relates to our mental wellness, it relates to how we're politicized, whether we want to be or not, the skin tone thing, the hair texture thing. Like, there's all of these things to unpack that we didn't see anyone doing, and I still don't necessarily see people doing in a real way, other than like a clickbait way. And so it just made sense, like, it sounds crazy to do a print magazine, but like, don't we deserve to have our story immortalized? And if we don't do it, who's gonna do it?
It's very much the thing that I figured out a long time ago, that the best business opportunities come from behavioral shifts and come from like cultural shifts. And so I figured out that likewise shifts in technology that make some of these things possible.
Right, that's huge.
Yeah, big time. I figured out that that the most important part of starting an endeavor was the timing of it. And the way that I figured that out is that I had worked on 2 things before that were great ideas, and I only know that they were great ideas because long after I'd failed at them, there were people who are successful at them. So I was able to prove that the idea would work. It's just that the time at which I endeavored to do them was the wrong time. And so the best time to start an endeavor is in response to a behavioral change in the people, or a cultural phenomenon or cultural shift. That's where the opportunities are. And when you're on time, it's not such a heavy lift to get a thing off the ground, because there's a hole, it's missing, there's a demand for it.
Like, I think 2 months after we released the first issue, Solange released A Seat at the Table, which was Don't Touch My Crown. It was just like, whoa, like this is timing like we could never have imagined. You know, and your other question was about the name Crown. And so, you know, I guess, I feel like that was God. You had the name with you when we had the conversation, I think.
We came up with the name the first day, although we didn't accept it.
In Crown Heights, mind you.
Crown Heights,
My
Brooklyn.
rooftop in Crown Heights.
In the first conversation where we first threw out the idea, we came up with the name, but back to that trust thing.
Didn't trust.
Oh, that's too obvious, that's not right. And so we went on this long journey of figuring out a bunch of other horrible names for this magazine. And then sort of at the last minute, we went back to the beginning. And
kind of gave up and we're just like, let's go.
Yeah,
let's just do it.
we needed, really it was we needed to send something to print, so it had to have a name.
Yeah.
So we just went back to the first idea, and you know, the double, triple entendre, the crown, hair being a woman's crowning glory, and your crown chakra, and your all of this, right? So like,
Royalty.
yeah, Black Girl Magic royalty things.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I have a question. I worked for a creative apprenticeship a few years back that a friend of mine started. She's biracial and has like this really beautiful natural hair. And one day she walked into the office because she had gotten the first edition.
Oh my
and
God.
we like all just sat around like, this paper is so good and these colors are so good and the branding is so good. And I was wondering from your perspective, when we hold something like this that is like such a beautiful project, do you think like the success of having a print project in a digital age is from like a sense of nostalgia, or do you think that it's something that we're like ready to start going back to more?
I think it's both, honestly. I think it's both. I think, like myself, and I think my cohort, there's like this feeling of, I wanted this thing the whole time and I never got it, and so to see it, it feels a certain way. But then I also think just social media is so oversaturated and we're so bombarded. Like I was talking to him yesterday, it's like I go on my phone, like we were talking about, we wish we had an iPod, because it's like you could go and just put on a song and step away. But it's like you go to put on a song and then now something else popped up and you're doing 5 other things before you actually, and now you didn't even put music on, you know? And your mind is so bombarded with all these things. And I think some of my favorite like social media posts that we'll see pop up from customers are like, you know, they're on their yoga mat and they have like Crown in front of them and like Lupita Nyong'o on Vogue, and I'm dedicating this practice to Crown and Lupita. And it's like, or, you know, like they're sitting with their tea and they're having their like, you know, spa moment, self-care moment with Crown. And it's like that unplug, turn my mind off a little bit, but then be fed by something, you know? We always talk about like, you know, social media, a lot of the things, the different things that especially are marketed to Black women are like candy, and there's no like greens and, you know, the things that we really need to sustain ourselves. And so we wanted to add something into that kind of diet, so to speak, that was substantial and that was nourishing and that doesn't make you just feel like you need to go buy a bunch of things or fix a bunch of things or cover up a bunch of things. Like, we don't do a bunch of airbrushing and retouching. You see skin, you see curves, you see hair. And it's just important when you grow up not seeing those things, you almost you forget that you never saw them, you know? You don't even realize until you see it that, like, wow, they've been lying to me this whole time.
It's putting it in a physical form is important. It's a strange kind of magic.
It's an experience.
It makes it real, and I think that's important in particular for this audience to say not only have you decided to change the beauty standard yourself, because that's really what happened. Black women got on YouTube and declared to the world that there's a new beauty standard.
Yeah.
and we just sort of like documented it. And in doing so, crystallized it, because it's something that happened on the internet.
And it's finite now.
And then we froze it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's also the case. There was also a very strong business case for it. A couple of things. What the blog did to the newspaper. I'm a magazine person. I've always loved magazines, and so I was kind of like, in 2008, kind of looking and wondering what was going to happen to magazines. And I remember distinctly, it was when Apple announced. I think it was when Apple announced Newsstand, and like you would first announced it, and you would be able to like experience magazines on the iPad, and everyone was certain that that would be a magazine killer, but it didn't. It's not, and it's we say it all the time that a magazine is as much a place as it is a thing. Print is inherently experiential. And in this digital age, that's the thing that we're craving the most. That's why we're here early in the morning having a chat, is because we want to have a human experience. And physical things are a part of that human experience.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't want to say status symbol, but it's a reflection of, like when you have it on your desk at work or you have it on your coffee table, it says something about you. It sparks a conversation. That's why it couldn't be like this tiny little thing filled with ads. It has to be something substantial that you're like, I'm never throwing this away. Like someone wrote into us and was like, oh my gosh, my husband threw my magazines away, and I was flipping out because she was just like, I would never, never get rid of them. Whereas I'm like, I have other magazines that I don't even know how I got signed up for that come, and they just kind of sit, and then you get rid of them. We, in designing the product, had to make it something that it's obvious that it's people always say it's like a book, and it really is a book. We went a little crazy, but it was important that we make it something that is substantial and that does draw that sort of response that you talked about.
We also saw that there was a correlation. We drew a correlation between the fact that Urban Outfitters was increasingly dedicating space to vinyl records. That was another signal that let me know that there's a business case for a print product, for an analog product. Who else? This is good. I like this.
Yes, ma'am.
Talk a little bit about not filling interns these days. What is, how do you build trust with people? Because you can't do it all by yourself forever. It's going to grow. How do you build those relationships with staff?
Well, I think the intern thing, we found that there has to be like a layer, and we're not anti-intern, but they have to have a very clear purpose, and ideally they report to someone that reports to us, so that there's not this like strange. I think in this social media era, people feel like things are a lot easier than they are. And so it's like, oh, I've been here a week and I want to tell you how we should run this business. And it's like, you're fired. No. Very nicely, but you're fired. No. So there's that. I think building trust, a lot of it is like time too. It's like we've been here and we've been alive, so that means something. For better or worse, building your social following and those kind of things are signifiers that it's a real thing. It's a platform, but I think it's just doing good work, and being consistent. When you have one issue out and you have no employees, it's harder to build trust. But when you have done this thing for some years, you have more work in the world, you can pay people, helps.
Also, for us, our best hires have been people that have been around for years.
Very much so.
Like, that's something, and that's back to the very beginning. It's the people that you bring with you. It's, you know, we've done some of our best work with people who were early customers and evangelists for the magazine, and would show up to things like this and be in touch with each other, and were able to build rapport over an extended period of time, and then appreciating their work and their talents, and then being able to go, we need someone. Well, what about so-and-so?
Right.
They've been around. We've been seeing their face for the last 3 years, and every time we encounter each other, it's pleasant. They really respect what we do, and we really respect what they do. Let's work together. And that's you know, back to the beginning of collecting people along the way. You never know how important we may be to each other.
During that time, you get to see how they move in their careers and what they're doing and how they move, and see their skills at work, so that you have trust on your side, and you know they trust what you're about. And I say the thing about interns, but one of our main team members was an intern, did a fellowship with us, and you know, and now is an editorial manager for us. And you know, that trust and that understanding of the community or company culture, understanding the nuances about like how we like to write and what the tone of voice is, and all of those things really came into play, where it's like, okay, I don't have to start from scratch with somebody and like place this company culture on them and train kind of some things that are untrainable. I can build on what has already been invested. And I think her showing up and putting in work and having a positive attitude let us know that, okay, she's still an entry-level hire and it's gonna take more hand-holding, but that like she has put some skin in the game. And so there's trust on both sides. She understands how we work. She can work with us, and we can work with her. And I think too, having proper expectations, like someone fresh out of college is not gonna revolutionize your business. If anything, they're gonna take a lot of time and energy, and you're gonna have to be very, very patient. But I think through that patience and through being like, okay, that was not cool because of X, Y, Z, and this is how we do things, and really being, having a level of transparency, but then also making sure that they know what their world is and what they should be working on.
Tell them about the bus thing.
Which thing?
Putting people on the bus, you know.
Oh, yeah. A philosophy of ours is that, and it's something I read my dad gave me this book years ago. I think it was called Good to Great. I don't think I read it. I just got the concept. But it was, you know, get people on the bus and then put them in the right seats. So in one particular case, we put someone on the bus as a project manager, kind of with the idea of, we'll see how this goes. I'm not sure if this is the exact perfect role. And she did some things did not go so well, but there was
horrible.
It was very bad. But there were some redeeming qualities there, and there were some other things that we really value. Like, we really value attitude. We really value being compatible with our culture, because a lot of people want to work in representation and want to write stories about Black women, but they don't have the other things that it takes to like work in a job where you're not like, this isn't go on social media and be cute, like it's work, you know? And so sometimes that can be lost in translation. And so having those things then allowed us to say, okay, that's not the right role for you. But being realistic up front and kind of knowing that it might not have worked out exactly, but then placing that person in a role that's much more in line with her skills. Because as a small business, there are a lot of things that need to get done. And so if it can't be that particular thing, let's shift over to this thing. And we were able to find that particular person a much better fit.
And I think what that boils down to is value for the person over value for the particular skill set, especially in areas that are trainable or easy for people to learn. And then it's also about like always giving people the right incentive and the right motivation to do any given thing. We found that people do much better work when they're working on something that they're really stoked to be working on. And so like, if it was up to me, I would never ask anyone to do anything that they didn't absolutely feel like doing at the moment. Now that's not the way the world works, but as much as we can, we try to put people in spots where they could get their thing off, where they could really like use what they've got, because that's what makes us happy, when you can apply your craft, you know?
Everybody has to do grunt work. We still do grunt work, but
the gruntiest of grunts.
I know. But when the person knows that after this grunt work, I get to do something that kind of brings me alive or gives me that sense of accomplishment in a way that's really in line with who they are, then we found that, you know, above just like results, and of course results are very important, it's loyalty and it's showing up every day and doing work, which, you know, is very important as well. So, anything else? Is that it?
Yeah, let's go ahead and give Lindsey and Nkrumah a round of applause.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.